Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Community Report 42 for Workers and Resources Soviet Republic. This was released on the 17th of January 2022, if you're watching this in the future. This report consists of two parts. The first part, the devs give us an update with respect to the release that's in the beta test branch in Steam. This is the Crime and Justice update. And then they move on to give us our first look at the new water supply mechanic, which is going to be a big feature of the next update, which was originally due to be released in February. Let's just get into what the devs have got to say. Greetings, dear comrades of the Soviet Republic. It's about 4 weeks ago we published the last report and due holiday season. We skipped one release, but this week we are back and we have something new and fresh for you. We are currently in the public testing phase of Crime and Justice update for a couple of weeks already, and we have gathered feedback from you as the balance was changing and many existing successful setups have become broken. I think what they mean by setups is existing save games. I know from watching a couple of YouTubers that the impact of the new update on some existing save games has been pretty dramatic. Luckily, so far, my Seven Crosses series seems to be holding up. You may notice that the overall difficulty of the game has risen significantly due to achievable average productivity in your Republic while playing on hardest difficulty settings. Most people were used to keep pretty high productivity, and as it dropped, their heating and all power infrastructure may not be sufficient to supply the needs of towns as before. We're still in the process of testing, and we try to find a balance where the challenge of low productivity will have significance, but will not cause death spirals which cannot be recovered in a reasonable way. There is room for balancing and tweaking of calculation formulas, and we got the right ideas for that. We are a bit late due to these issues with release, but it's better for the game, and we hope that we will be able to release this update soon. So what they're actually saying is that the version that's currently in the beta test branch in Steam is not the final version, and we can probably expect another update. I can imagine that their main problem is getting the balance between happiness and productivity right, so that productivity doesn't crash if happiness crashes, because I think that's going to be very important that they get that right, because what they've done is a potential game breaker. The only thing I do hope is that they may also take a look at the problem with alcohol in orphanages, because that may have a significant impact on health and possible growth, especially as it seems to be able to spread across the map. And what we're going to do now is just move on and see what we've got below. It says, now the new stuff we mentioned, for sure we will raise the overall difficulty even more. They're not kidding. We have started to put more effort into the next update after Crime and Justice. We have our concepts and basics for water treatment and sewage, and we can share something about them with you. This week we will write about water treatment and water distribution, and as compensation you will get another report next week about sewage and additional information about the Crime and Justice update release. You may be aware that we are trying to implement features complicated and hopefully funny way, and these mechanics will not be an exception. Based on this paragraph, I would guess that what the next update for the beta branch may not be until next week. So they're obviously doing quite a lot of internal testing. What we're going to do is just move on and take a look at the new water mechanics. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to read through what they say, and then we'll spin back and start to take a look at the pictures. We have taken this in a way that other game studios will probably not do, and the most critical things regarding water were already solved, the water delivery and pressures. We have still a lot to do, especially with regard to how water and power distribution is connected. That's going to be interesting. Set up consumption and other values for gameplay, and deal with water contamination. The basic principles is this: you'll be able to take water from a source well, which should be in a non-polluted area. As more pollution there is around the source, the worse the water quality will be. So I can take from that straight away that one, looks like very much they're focusing on wells, but I do hope that they at least leave a potential to use other water sources, say for example extracting from rivers. I know there's a potential issue there with the fact that the game currently doesn't distinguish between freshwater and seawater, but then that opens up the possibility of desalination plants. I'm also wondering whether there might be a potential for reservoirs, but I don't want to take it too far. Probably more intriguingly is this concept of pollution, because that obviously will affect health, because if you're giving people polluted water, then they're going to get sick. So we're just going to move down to the next paragraph. After you get the water, you will need to treat and purify it in drinking water treatment plant, where you will need chemicals, and the worse the water quality, the more chemicals are required to make the water drinkable for your people. Then you will need to get the water to your residential areas, and we will use pipes. There will be substations like the power and heat distribution to connect residential buildings to the water distribution infrastructure. That the way how water is being delivered, it will depend on the altitude differences and size of pipes. Players will have several options on how to distribute the water to citizens. There will be water pumps, water towers, and if there's a source which is situated higher on a hill, they'll be able to get a higher water pressure. Interesting. Now, my first impression from that is if they make water treatment plants mandatory, because they mentioned chemicals here, that adds a completely new dimension to when you're actually first starting out, especially if you're going to do a hard start or an early start, the fact that you're treating water with chemicals. I hope that they don't make that mandatory, because I think if you could find a pure water source or a good quality water source, I think you should still be able to supply that to your residents without water treatment. So I'm hoping that will be an option. I think this will be a good time now to actually go look at the pictures. Now, based on what I've down here, I'd say that these are actually water towers. In fact, they do look familiar. I'm assuming that the water tower will be used to maintain pressure. Now, living in the UK, we don't generally have water towers, because our water, as in the game is talking about, comes from aquifers, especially where I live, and the water is actually pressurized using pumps. I think we're just, I'm assuming that this is going to be a large water tower and this is going to be a small water tower. I'm basing that assumption on the fact that this has got a large town in the background, and this picture here has got a tiny little village here. So, and I'm looking, it looks almost like the water towers could be on the supply side rather than the delivery side. Because what we're going to get now is look at this picture here. So what we got here is a water substation, a big water tower. Yeah, so I think that confirms that this is the water tower, and it says a big water well. Quite interesting. I'm not sure if you guys can see this. It says no workers, but I don't see a water treatment plant in this setup, which is encouraging. So I think we'll kind of go the logical sequence. It says a big water well, and you can see it says it's got a source export, and it's obviously got this one produces 720 tons of water, has a cleanliness of 95%. So I think this is an example of what I've just said, is that if water's 95% clean, you may not need to treat it. Then we've got a gauge here which gives the a kind of a capacity to deliver. It looks very much like this is saying that it can deliver 19.6 cubic meters of water per day, and it's also quite interesting at the top here. It says big water well. So what I'm hoping is there might be different options. Say like you can have a big tower and a small tower, as we've already seen, but also with the water supply, because you don't want to spend a lot of time digging a great big well. Now I can't tell from the buildings which is the well. Let me just see. Now, so returning back to the water well, it looks like we're going to get possibility of 6 outputs, and we've got the big water tower's got a storage of 300 tons, cleanliness of 95%. So you could start with polluted water and then treat it, and what each step in the way you have get cleanliness. Then you've got a water substation. Now you can see this has got an input, and these gauges are actually in bar. Now, if anyone's not sure, is 1 bar is, if I remember correctly, the pressure at sea level. So what this means is that these will be measures of your pumping capacity on each of your outputs. So this water substation here, it could deliver, it looks like it could deliver water up to the 7 bar. And I'm assuming that this water substation will work the same way as an electric substation. And then we got the tower here. So it looks like this has got 2 inputs and 2 outputs to the tower. So you'll be able to have 2 supplies in and 2 out. So this water tower here looks like it could connect to 2 water substations. In fact, I think the next picture down is the same, but from a different angle. And I'm not sure if you guys can actually see with the underground view, but what it looks like is the building on the left hand side, because the pipe goes straight down, is the well, and then the building in the center is the substation, and then the building obviously on the right is the water tower. So it looks very much like you could have a direct supply connected to the water distribution. So that solves the question I was about, whether the water treatment would be mandatory or whether you could just pump the water straight in. And I think they've also put it up on a hill here just to show that height may have an effect with pressure. I actually quite like that as well. And we'll just take a look at the last picture. This, I would guess, is some kind of water treatment plant, because what you've got here is like tanks. I'm assuming that the tanks themselves, in fact, if you look on the right hand side, there's two water distribution points, and they've got underwater tanks underneath. And then we've got what would be two small towers with a throughput going to another part. Looks like there's also a pumping station here with one input and three outputs, but there may be more because they just use three outputs. And then down here is the actual water treatment part. And comparing the two pictures, I would say that there's underground water tanks. And this treatment plant looks like it will have four inputs as well. So that's pretty cool, actually. And I think what we're getting here is a view of something that's a bit more sophisticated, because the town in the background is a bit bigger. What I am hoping, because of course these pictures don't show, is that the water tower and possibly the well also has its own distribution system. So if we return back to well, maybe this picture would be a bit better. So for example, here we've got a small village, and this water tower actually supplies the water to this village. That you don't need to put in an intermediate, I can say, point like the electricity distribution. And I'm hopefully that will also apply to the well as well, which is this building on the right, hopefully. And of course, I'm pretty sure the modders will soon be changing this to different views. And the one that strikes me straight away, especially for early starts, is actually a traditional well with a hand crank. But I'm just getting well ahead of myself here, because what that would mean is that, again, if we return back to the small village here, we'll be able to put a well possibly in the center to supply a small starting area. A lot of this is just me purely speculating about what this actually be, and I think it'd be more useful once we actually see the sewage side. And I don't want this video to be too long, so we're just going to go down and do the final paragraphs. We expect that all these new changes will have a significant impact on existing saves, and there's a high probability that some on them may fail. And if the player will try to keep the hardest difficulty, you just cannot easily upgrade big existing cities and areas if required without using auto build with money. You may try to salvage your republic, and we wish you success, as you want to hear about successful attempts that you share with us. You can use the Steam forums with the similarity as providing feedback. If you're not able to continue, it may be said, but it may give you reason to start fresh and make a new, better, a more realistic republic. It is just how it goes with the early access. You may try to make the game playable for older saves, but we cannot guarantee anything due to the complications that we have in our game. There's a lot of mechanics that are dependent on each other, and if something breaks for you, it would cause the death spiral that you cannot recover. I think they're being completely honest there, and I think I've already accepted that when the water update comes in, it's going to be incredibly difficult to put all that infrastructure in. And it's not just going to be the sheer cost of building the buildings, is that, well, there's already infrastructure underground already. I mean, I've got underground heating pipes, underground power pipes, and fitting all that layer in with another layer of water will, I'm pretty sure it's going to break my existing save game. And I've accepted that. So when this water update drops, I will definitely be starting a new series. And just to finish off, it says, we hope we will find a way how to balance this upcoming update. It just requires some time and helpful feedback. Many people like the challenge of the game can give them, and others may try to ease it a bit and play at a lower difficulty setting. But it should never be in a way that if you do everything well, that you will still fail. Only if there is a new difficulty with survival mode added when you get your goal, maybe to survive as long as you can. But failure is guaranteed sooner or later. It is a game though, and we need to take it as a game. Do not take your republic more seriously than real life. If you fail, you can try again, but never give up in life and in game. That's way for you and your current and next republic. Just learn from your mistakes and share your experiences and give another a try. Until next time, everyone, enjoy your lives and stay tuned for the next report. I think that is a pretty good ending, really, because I think some people get completely obsessed, and when a game has a major change, they think, you've broken the game. But I think that is part of the challenge, is embracing that new mechanic and taking it forward into a new republic. Personally, I enjoy that change, because I think when you get a new mechanic introduced or some new feature, it just refreshes the game and makes you think about it again. And of course, there is an indirect challenge there, in the sense of, well, can you keep your save game going? And that is something I may look at if I can pull my Four Corners series round. But that may prove a bit more of a challenge. But I think this is where I'm going to leave it. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you found it interesting. And until next time, whatever you do, enjoy your gaming.